This season of reading this book and stuff, I started praying, God, search me. What do you have for me, God? What would you want me to do? What can I do to be a follower of you? What do you have for me? And I was at church, this Green River Assembly Church, and they had an altar call. It was one of your normal altar calls, come up for healing, whatever the case may be. But Pastor Nathan had these people up, and he said, he's praying, and he said, there's somebody else that needs to come up here. There's somebody that started a work for the Lord that hasn't finished, and he needs to come up right now, and he needs to surrender. And that was like the hair spiky thing. You guys know what it's like. Yeah. I used to know what it was like. I don't anymore. But anyways, so that I was like, that's me. And I went up, and I'm a journaler, but I went up there and I said, okay, God, if this is what you want, cool. And I wrote in my journal, and I told the Lord, I said, if you really want me to go into ministry, if this is what you have for me, then you need to just slap me in the face with it. You need to bring it to me because I don't know what to do. And if you want me to do it, it's up to you. Ball's in your court. If you don't do anything, please shut the door. Let's not talk about this again, Lord. I'll just go to work every day, and I will tithe, and I'll go to church and do all that wonderful stuff. Well, it was like 2 weeks later, I get this pamphlet called For Wyoming School of Ministry. I've only been going to this Assembly of God church for like 6 months, so there's a lot going on here. And I thought, okay, what's this about? I prayed about it, oh, this is an avenue you can take to get into the ministry. And so I met with the pastor. I said, is it cool if I do this? I know I've only been going to your church for a few months, but are you okay with that? And he said, yeah, I support you on that. You can do it. So I did, and I told God, I said, all in. I'll do the whole thing from beginning to finish. I went in with that attitude, and I did. I did all 3 years, and I met a great leader, your guys' pastor, Pastor Kevin, and his wife Melissa, who took me to, a place where I am today. And it's not without pastors like that and people like that that are dedicated to raising up other leaders and working with churches and working with people that God's work doesn't advance. So I have to have a big handshake for Pastor Kevin and Melissa for supporting him and everything that they've done for us, things that you guys probably haven't seen. But anyway, so out of that, I ended up in Sunday teaching youth group again. I've done youth group before, thought I was done. I come back into youth group after not doing youth group for close to 10 years. And, it was fun. But there's this little thing that they didn't have in youth group back when I first did it, that they do now. It's called the smartphone. You guys know the smartphone, right? Now, any of you guys that have been in youth group around teenagers, how many of you guys know they really love their smartphones? And so that was a real big challenge for us, just the difference of how teenagers are today versus how they were 10 years ago, and how I've gotten older than teenagers than I was 10 years prior. So I didn't relate to them very well, but we did. We had fruit, and we had a good time, and we saw kids grow, and we saw some kids saved, and we saw them make changes at conventions and camps and stuff like that. And there's probably a couple of you that probably saw me at camp if you're younger here. Or at convention and stuff like that. But I do love teenagers, but it wasn't but a couple years in the youth ministry that me and the pastor in Green River, Pastor Nathan, both confirmed that, maybe youth group is not where I belong. And, he was a good pastor because he decided that rather than you're not called into, youth or whatever, he'd kick you aside, he decided he'd kick me out of the nest. So he just kind of started kicking, and pushing and kicking. And because he said he saw me going into the pastoral side of ministry. And so, he stirred me up, and I'm thankful for that. But we started, about a year and a half ago, we started looking into what's next. And so we started to put our application at some churches. We applied in Idaho, we applied in Montana. There was one on the east side of Wyoming that we applied for. One in Idaho didn't work out. We hadn't heard anything back from the other ones, and our district superintendent called me one day and said, we had a church full in Marbleton. Would you be interested in taking on this church and revitalizing this church? And to be honest with you, I had gone and preached at that church after their pastor had retired, and I was like, no way, I can't do this community, I can't do this church. But it was different when the superintendent called and said, would you be interested in restarting this church? That's totally different than taking a church and opening a new church. And so I was really excited about it. but I wasn't confirmed on it yet. So we were praying as a family and stuff about this. Are we supposed to continue to pursue these other churches? Are we supposed to do that? Well, in the meantime, I was having a really hard time at work. I just was almost like, God, I hope I'm not trying to seek other ministry opportunities just so I can get out of my job. And so, no, you're not. And so I had applied for some other secular work and stuff, and he said, no, you're staying right where you are. And it's the closest place that I could possibly live to Marvelton, besides being in the oil field, where I could make a good enough living to move into this middle of nowhere in the very edge of the desert to start a church and provide for my family. Mm-hmm. He's like, you're staying right here. I had this plan 15 years ago when you started at this job. Mm-hmm. And so he kept me there. And we got done praying one night as a family. We were praying about our future and stuff. And Kim looks at me and she says, why are we even wasting our time praying about where to go right now? Because you know we're going to Marvelton. So maybe we should just do it. And this was right around Thanksgiving in 2016. And so I was like, are you sure? And she's like, oh yeah, I'm sure. And so Wilderness Church at Pinedale had originally decided that they wanted to kind of be a part of this revitalization. I called their pastor, I talked with them. We met a couple times, talked about how my visions and his visions for this revitalized church could maybe come together and start something new. And so yeah, we went ahead and confirmed it. I called up our places we'd applied and said, please pull my application. I'm not even interested anymore. We're going to Marvelton. And then came the part where we needed to talk to our parents about it. Now, I have a practical dad that has, like, keep your nose clean, son. Just go to work. Don't stir the pot. Just, get that paycheck and go home. And that's that's an okay way to live. It really is. But when God stirs you to do something big, and He calls you out,
Amen.
You got to go with your Father above over your Father on earth. So I told my dad, like, Dad, I'm moving to LaBarge. And he said, wow, how extravagant, Gee, you only drive 25 miles to work right now. Why do you want to drive 55? And, because that's what God wants. So we did. We told my parents. We told her parents. Of course, her dad's like, whatever, as long as you're happy. He's not saved, pray for him. We know he's going to get saved one of these days, but, we're just being a positive example for him. But, he was like, whatever, as long as you keep my grandkids fed and keep my wife with a nice house, we'll be just fine. You do whatever you want. So he put his blessing on it, helped us move up there. So we moved up to LaBarge. I drive 50 miles to work every morning, every afternoon. And I have to be up at 3:30 because I have to be to work at 5. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people are like, wow, how do you do that? That's terrible. But to be honest with you, when you go into it, the heart of God has called me to minister into this community. And Melissa kind of knows because she goes to Jackson to work. But that's part of your ministry. Part of my ministry is to drive to work every day. And so I worship Him all the way home, and I listen to people preach about Him all the way. I listen to worship all the way to work, and I listen to people minister or preach about Him on the way home. So it's my time with Him. It's my time to worship Him and love Him. And so yeah, there we are. It's been an amazing journey, and I think before I go into my little sermonette, I should share with you guys too that moving to LaBarge was a really hard thing because as soon as you say yes to God with something like this, the enemy himself is going to show up and he's going to tell you, no way, Jose. And so, since we've been there, I crashed my car going to work. Something about going down a highway in reverse about 60 miles per hour. It's kind of scary, but I did. I crashed my little car. Kim had a medical emergency. We had to take her down to Kimmer in the middle of the night, have her gallbladder taken out. And what was interesting about this gallbladder removal thing was this was the Friday night before the first Saturday work day that we were going to have with another church in the state of Wyoming. And he put her in the hospital over it. I'm not saying the father, but I feel like it was enemy attack. And I don't know how you guys feel about that, but that's how I feel, is that it was enemy attack. And so here I was with my wife in the hospital late at night, and I had to get up the next morning. You can't call a church at 1 o'clock in the morning and say, hey, we're not going to have you. My wife's in the hospital. It's hard to do that. The plans were already put together. So I had to go home. I had to put together lunch for these guys. I kind of had to put them together, be worried about her. and figure out how we're going to get her home from the hospital. But it worked out. And you know, he continues to come in and try to destroy us and make us feel like we don't belong there.